Nice to see you again, Spider-Man. But it's not making it. How's business? Booming.
You are watching Omnis Protocol, and this matchup is Defenders versus Criminal Syndicate. My team is Doctor Strange with Spider-Man and Valkyrie, and then I'm testing out Star-Lord and Shuri in the unaffiliated slots. My opponent is playing Criminal Syndicate, got Kingpin, Taskmaster, Green Goblin, Crossbones, and MODOK. So it's a full team, all 5 of them are Criminal Syndicate. And so he is starting off first thing by having Green Goblin come screaming across the board after my my civilian. This one is Cosmic Portals and Evacuation. So Cosmic Portals is the one that comes with Thanos, and then Evacuation is Star-Lord's Crisis. So first thing he does, Green Goblin, again, coming after my extracts right away. I didn't really want to do this, but I had a feeling he was going to go for that, so I decided to have Strange cross the board opposite to Taskmaster to grab one of his to try to balance things back out. So this is an okay position for Doctor Strange. He's pretty durable, but I know that I do not have the offensive strength to be bringing down Green Goblin, and especially with how things were going on the table. So I kind of knew that he was going to cross over with that, and I wasn't going to have a great response. But I also don't think he has an amazing response to Doctor Strange doing it. So I think it's okay, and it's just going to have an overall kind of net that we both end up with the same score. So he advances Crossbones up towards the Cosmic Portal on that side, but due to terrain limitations, he doesn't quite get Crossbones in the perfect spot to be contesting over there. So it is possible that I can score that side. I do have Valkyrie kind of way back down there in the corner. Now that things have kind of activated on that side, I believe I'm going to move up there to take that point. It puts her in a very dangerous spot because I am not going to have priority. I decide I will go ahead and advance once. I go ahead and charge, actually, and just see what sort of damage I can get on Goblin. Overall, I only ended up doing 1 damage after his defense roll, and so I didn't feel like it was worthwhile to take another attack, and I just used her second action to move up to score a point. I mean, she's got 1 power out of it. She'll get 2 power next turn. So going for the charge didn't really hurt me much. Obviously, it would have been great if I had 1 more power and I'd been able to hex him. But you know, that would have been probably the best part if I was going to stand there and do another attack, is that I could go for like energy as the damage type and then go for a hex on him. Maybe I get in a couple more points of damage, but overall, the point was more important to me. So here, my opponent is kind of taking a look and trying to see how close can MODOK get to Strange. Is he going to be able to advance once and take a shot? It looks very, very close. So we're gonna shift the terrain piece for the moment to try to get a better gauge before he commits to the movement. Man, and it's so close. He decides to go for it. He is definitely out. Now he's thinking about final positioning for where MODOK is going to end up going, because he doesn't have anyone from there. So we're going to resolve the first action. So he moves to there. We get the terrain back in place. Now the question is what else is MODOK going to do? He could move up to be threatening Doctor Strange at the beginning of next round, which he decides to go ahead and do. My opponent still hasn't activated Kingpin or Taskmaster. I still have Spider-Man, Shuri, and Star-Lord. We're kind of checking to see if there's a possible spot for MODOK to be within range 1 of the portal and be in range to bow. And unfortunately, it is just out for that, so he can't have both. So now the question is would he rather be within the range 3, or does he want to be scoring a point there? He decides being within range 3 of Strange is the more important part in this particular case. because he'll probably have either Kingpin or Taskmaster be the one scoring. Kind of taking a look, see where Shuri would potentially have to be to be pushing a character over there. This is where obviously having both Spider-Man and Shuri be able to be some of my last characters is obviously very advantageous. So it's probably going to need to kind of make a decision about where Star-Lord is going to go to. I still have an extract to pick up. And so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and activate Star-Lord here. The idea being I want him to grab that extract, and then he's going to move onto the center portal. He has a flyer, so the size 3 terrain doesn't really affect him much. So Star-Lord's kind of hanging out back there. This was kind of experimental. I thought that Star-Lord might be an interesting character with the Defenders leadership, as he would generally have the power to go and hex someone, and maybe being able to choose physical or mystic could crank up his potential. However, the actual Crisis lineup isn't fantastic for him, and the D-Secure isn't great. So this is one where I think I'm feeling almost immediately like I would rather have Gwen in his position for this particular Crisis. But again, the idea was experimentation here. I wanted to see how he would feel as a defender. All right, my opponent has got to settle in to Taskmaster or Kingpin, and who's going to go last. We eventually decide that Kingpin's a little less threatened by the other characters, and so might as well get his activation done first, as he's gonna hang on that point for the time being. The weird thing that this creates by not having MODOK actually on the point is that now it does hinder the ability for Kingpin to move later if MODOK wants to double attack. He's not just chilling on the point. And so it does create some awkwardness for like how that part's going to unpack later on. Now I've got to make a final decision about who's going where. I decide I'm just going to go ahead and have Spider-Man move up onto the point, and then save the Shuri activation to see what he does with Taskmaster. I could have waited and potentially had Spider-Man go and impact webbing and that sort of thing. He decides he's not going to move onto the point since Shuri's going to push him off anyway, so he wants to take the attack on Strange. Overall, he didn't end up doing any damage, and I rolled a shield, so I generated a power. So not a great attack activation for him. I'm going to go ahead and have Shuri move up. Still think I'm just going to take an attack on Taskmaster. Yep, just try to generate some power. Here I'm debating, do I want to spend for Hex potential? I decided to go for it. I do get the 1 damage through, so he is hexed. I do not roll a skull, so she does not generate an extra power. Things might look a little weird on my opponent's side as he was starting to get ready for the next round already. But things wrapped up, going an even score of 4-4, and I forgot to push Taskmaster. But we'll see how it goes in the next round. Moving on. Alright, and I did say it wrong at the end of the last round. It was not actually a score of 4-4. It was actually 5-3 in favor of Defenders, as I was able to capture 3 of the secures. I forgot in the bottom that Crossbones wasn't contesting there. So I was able to get ahead, which feels really good against Syndicate, but now we're resolving portal movement. Unfortunately, Spider-Man's moving backwards, which is not great. Gives him a little bit of power, which is nice. Okay. Star-Lord does not move. Valkyrie does. So I do get some power out of this, which is nice. But yeah, this overall was probably just fine for me. This was just really giving me extra power. And actually, I actually feel like this was overall beneficial for Valkyrie. Don't worry, she won't be off screen for very long. This is definitely a spot where I probably should have resolved pushing Shuri, using the Shuri push on Taskmaster. I don't have the option to not to push him, but I don't think it ends up having a large impact on the overall game. But it's an important thing to keep in mind. We all make mistakes. We were wrapping up the round, so got into like counting score and stuff. But he has priority, so he gets to do something to punish me. All right, so MODOK is going to shoot Doctor Strange. It's Psionic Blast time. I do spend to roll additional dice. The net result is I'm taking 0 damage. Overall, I rolled pretty well. He decides not to spend power to reroll on that one. Overall, I am blocking 3. He's hitting for 3. I was not able to roll additional dice because I only got a power for rolling a shield. He did roll a wild, and so I lost a power, but I rolled a shield, so I got 1 back. So the net result was basically MODOK gained 1 power. So definitely not a great MODOK activation, but Strange is one of the tougher characters for him to shoot at. He is going to use Bow. At least it looks like what he's considering. There's a part of me I'm like, is it good for me that he's spending the power? And he does decide he is shoving Doctor Strange right into everything. But I'm like, all right, this seems like a reasonable time. I need to get Doctor Strange out of dodge, so I'm gonna move back. Here he is gonna make 1 bolt of bedevilment attack. This is where it would have been better again if I had shot, I've actually pushed Taskmaster back. He wouldn't be counting blanks as successes right now. I decide I don't want to reroll the shield because I'd like to gain a power out of this, so that's 1 awkwardness with Shuri. So I just reroll 1. Overall, I deal 1. So here I am... Oh, sorry, it was actually quite a bit more than that. Ended up dealing 3 damage to him. Actually, a pretty great Doctor Strange roll. So now he's going to go ahead and activate Goblin. I assume this is probably going to be punish Valkyrie for her crimes. He just throws a bomb at her. I roll no blocks. He puts 3 damage onto her. Since he generated some power, he's now going to use hit and run so he can get onto the crisis. The 4 dice doesn't yield any damage. Well, it doesn't deal enough damage to get through my 1 block on the second attack. So overall, 3 damage. But that is going to be able to put him onto the point. Right now, he's just deciding, does he want to be next to the terrain, or does he want to go on top of it? I was just kind of eyeing, like, do I want Star-Lord to walk over there and pop a shot at him? So I decided to go ahead and charge Green Goblin, because now I'm worried that Crossbones could potentially walk over and just, like, punch and finish her off. I decided to go ahead and use Brace for Impact on that. I think the risk of me like losing the whole Valkyrie activation to that 4 damage is pretty reasonable. The average dice would yield 1 block, and then she dies. So not fantastic. So that seems like a great time for Brace. Overall, with Warrior of Legend, he ends up taking 3 after 2 blocks. He has 4 total damage on Goblin, and so I'd have to do 3 more to daze him. So what I'm considering here is whether or not I want to go for 1 more attack because she is holding a civilian. So I'm thinking I might just back her away now. So that's like, obviously I might get the daze, but that doesn't have a... yeah, overall I Warrior of Legend into basically nothing. And so I didn't get any damage out of that. So I decided to med pack. I still need to keep her up. And I don't want the crossbones to explode. And I've got Doctor Strange healing on the other side. So, all right, well, that did take two tactics cards to kind of keep Valkyrie in the game, but she's a boss. All right, Taskmaster walks up. He clears Hex, and he med packs himself. So we're both kind of keeping our 3 threats in the game. All right, so Taskmaster is not on the point, which is good. I still have Star-Lord, Shuri, and Spider-Man. He's got Crossbones and Kingpin. So I think what we're going to do here is just activate Star-Lord. He's not doing a whole lot here, just kind of shuffling around. This is definitely feeling like on this particular Crisis combination, Star-Lord was not the right pick for this. Crossbones walks over. He's going to lay the smack down on Valkyrie. I rolled no blocks, so he overall did 2 damage. Not a too crazy of an explosive action, but it does leave Crossbones somewhat set up to potentially overpower me next round, which is not great. Got to activate someone. So Shuri is going to walk forward, get on the point, and shoot at Taskmaster. I did not roll a skull. So that's not like 3 attacks in for her with no skulls. Just kind of trying to keep Taskmaster a little out of position. Kingpin chills on the point so that he's in a score. I decided to have Spider-Man walk up and just toss an impact webbing and try to hex Taskmaster again. I'm declaring it as Mystic even though he's got 3 defense against everything. I did not end up dealing any damage, so I do not actually get the hex. But I did get a wild push. So put him a little further away. Spider-Man gains power out of it. So that rounds things out for the round. So it's going to end up being a 4-4 score. So it goes 9-7. So we'll see you in the next round. All right, we are on to round 3. If I recall, this is where things start going a little crazy. Because we've got to resolve some portals, and now there's a lot of characters on portals. And so... he's also got Blind Obsession, so we're just like making sure we do stuff in the right order. So we've got to resolve the Crisis stuff first. So Kingpin gets pushed, which means extra power for him. I just kind of bump him into the car. All right, Goblin does not move. Crossbones does move. 2 more power on Crossbones. That guy's getting a little loaded. Neither Valkyrie or Star-Lord. Doctor Strange gets moved. This is real bad. Yeah, this is definitely not a good thing. This Cosmic Portals crisis can really do some crazy stuff when characters get pushed at the wrong moment. And now Shuri's also getting pushed, and so that means she's getting pushed away from Doctor Strange so that he doesn't have defensive rerolls either. Ugh. Spider-Man does not get moved. I think I may even have forgotten to give Shuri power there as well. So, suffering the disadvantage without the advantage. Right now, my opponent is contemplating whether or not he wants to use Shadow Organization. Overall, we were kind of talking it out and thinking it's probably better later on. He decides to have Taskmaster use Blind Obsession on Doctor Strange. He contemplates for a moment, like, do you want to Blind Obsession Kingpin? And I believe he's settling into, nope, he's going to do it with Taskmaster. What he's kind of debating is like the Taskmaster denying the defensive rerolls versus like a stagger from Kingpin. Taskmaster just lays into me. Overall, he ends up with 7 successes. I block 3, and so I take I end up taking 3 damage, it looks like. He lays into me again, 6 successes. But yeah, so he ends up getting 4 damage on the second one. So yeah, that's it for Doctor Strange. That dude got Diz. Blind Obsession plus double mnemonic technique is pretty baller. And it's also like, I was really hating the fact like how many crits he rolled, was considering Spider-Man went for the Hex and then didn't get it. I was like, oh, so sad. So sad. Maybe when Shuri shot at him, she should have spent the power to reapply Hex. It would have been a little bit more dependable, but... and now he's going to go ahead and go for a disarm. And so Goblin and Crossbones disarm Valkyrie. So that is a really rough way to start off a round. To have your highest threat character get dazed, and then your character that's set to basically have the largest impact after that disarmed. Disarm, amazing card. If you are not playing it, start playing it. So I decide Valkyrie's going to go ahead and Dragon Fang, which is only 5 dice, into Green Goblin. I did Warrior of Legend, so I end up dealing 2, which I am able to so she's going to go ahead and back up after the other attack. So disarm isn't going to be relevant anymore. Valkyrie at that point also picks up the extract from Goblin. So I think I may have said earlier in the show that she was holding an extract, but that was me misremembering. She doesn't have it until this point. Okay, so Crossbones moves onto the point. Part of why I moved her away is because I knew that Crossbones was going to control that point either way. There really wasn't anything I can do about that. And so I thought her maintaining the extract was more important. Okay, well, so we're still kind of keeping a rough parity of VPs, as Strange dropped his. It has not been picked up yet, but the positioning of it is not really in a spot where I want to send anyone to go get it. I decide to have Star-Lord walk over and take a shot at Crossbones. I do spend for Hex. He did not roll any blocks, but he spends one to negate a damage, so overall I deal 1 damage. And he is hexed. Asked him if he would like to aggressive towards me. He decides not to. He wants to stay on the point. All right. Now Star-Lord is off the point, so I've got to think about having Shuri or Spider-Man move on to that one. But I kind of needed to see like how things were going to go with Crossbones, and I needed to apply some more pressure over there. I don't think I could have Star-Lord just sit and do nothing. But man, it would have been great to like if that was Gwen instead, and like I yank him off the point, and then she walks onto the the point. Like that could be a pretty important VP there. Kingpin has decided to move up and is going to throw Spider-Man off of the point. He decides to toss me into a lamppost over there. You can only kind of barely make it out. Lamppost is destroyed. He decides with how much power Spider-Man's ending up with that the 1 damage from hitting that and giving me 1 more power isn't really going to have a big effect one way or the other. Okay, so now he has activated everyone but MODOK. I have Shuri and Spider-Man. So Spider-Man goes ahead and web lines Kingpin. And then moves forward to be an impact webbing range of Taskmaster. One downside of me dazing Green Goblin is it sets me up to lose priority. I mean, mind you, he could potentially take it back anyway. He only has 1 defense die because of Blind Obsession, and so I'm able to daze him with Spider-Man. Which I'm kind of like, maybe that was a bad thing. Maybe it would have been better to like leave him up. I was not expecting to daze him. I'm remembering here that there's still literally a civilian just like sitting over there, but like all I could have done was like double move Spider-Man over there, and then MODOK just wrecks him. So there wasn't any great options. There's part of me that's wishing that I had just left Star-Lord off that point, because that would have opened up like some way better maneuvers with Shuri. So it ends up being another 4-4 score turn, which brings it to 13-11. So those movements really killed me with the cosmic portals. But we'll see what happens in the next round. All right, it is round 4. I'm impressed that I've been able to stay ahead on score against Criminal Syndicate, 13-11. Now it's time to resolve some more portals. I was not happy with how they went last turn. MODOK gets extra power out of this one. Not happy about that at all. More power, which means more rerolls, so I'm not happy about that. Peter gets pushed, Shuri does not. And this pushes Peter into more awkward positions. Okay. He is using Shadow Organization this turn. Crossbones spends 2. MODOK spends 2. And Kingpin also spends 2. What we're doing here is kind of marking the cards so we can remember which of the characters are affected. MODOK is laying into Doctor Strange. I do spend power. He's sapping. He's dealing 0, sapping 1. Because I'm rolling so well on this particular block, he decides not to, because he has to basically re-roll his 2 that he can re-roll both into successes to even deal 1. And so this is where conserving those power for rerolls on the next attack, which may have a lot higher potential. So he did steal a power from me. I am still going to roll my bonus dice. Currently blocking 2, taking 1. He spends 3 for rerolls. He ends up with 5 successes, all wilds. So he saps 5 power from me, and then dealing 3 damage. And so I'm like, I'm at 8 dice. Do I think I can re-roll into an addition? I'm only blocking 2 at the moment. And so I'm thinking maybe with the re-rolls, I can have a reasonable chance at 3. I decide to go ahead and take it, and I'm going for the strange re-rolls. And I rolled into 1 block on 8 dice. So I take 4. And then, so he gets 4 power plus 5, so he gains 9. Basically, goes to 9 and spends 2 to throw the building at me. And that KOs Doctor Strange. And now, because he gains so much power, what he's going to do is he's going to evac the civilian on MODOK. So that's going to end up tying us up 13-13. Yeah, man, that him getting the 5 wilds was huge there. Because if he doesn't, he needs most of that to be able to evac. Because dealing the 4 damage would only leave him with 2. And so if he rolled even just 3 wilds instead of 5, he can't evac to even out the score. So, man, that's a crazy MODOK roll to change out the game. So now I'm like, now I'm trying to figure out what can I do to potentially salvage this. Here we forgot that Goblin would generate a little extra power because he's on his flip side. It hasn't come up in a while, so we're just making sure he has the right power on him. Here I'm like, okay, I think I have to pull off some cool Valkyrie stuff here. Is probably my best chance at success. I'm checking here, is there any way that I can position Valkyrie in a place where she may potentially be able to potentially be able to get rerolls from Shuri, and it just doesn't look like that's possible. So she spends 2 to charge at Goblin. Overall, I'm only dealing 2 and he's blocking 1, so I'm dealing 1. So now I'm just like, now I just have to like roll an attack and get 4 more damage through. So I deal him 2 with the second one, which leaves him with 2 health, which is absolutely terrible math here. I cannot begin to explain because I did enough damage that it prevents Star-Lord from being able to build enough power there. So it's pretty awful math. I either needed her to like whiff completely, or to do something better there. So now I'm thinking things have probably fallen apart, especially in conjunction with Shadow Organization. But I'm trying to stay in just to see if there's a way that I could still potentially pull things out. So here we're discussing the potential here is if we have Crossbones knock out Valkyrie, that it may just lock in the game for him. All right, Crossbones punching Valkyrie. And he just one-shots her, so he has the power to evac the one that's on him and pick up the civilian that she drops. So now the score is going to be 13-15. So now that's really ugly. So now the best option, I'm trying to figure out what can I possibly do with Star-Lord. I don't have any way to get the power on him now to potentially be able to evac. He needs to be able to generate 3. And because Goblin only has 2 health left on him, now that is the perfect math. So even if Star-Lord moves forward, takes 1 shot at Goblin, he now mathematically cannot get the power to do an evac. And so Valkyrie did just enough damage to kind of like screw Star-Lord out of options. He does still have a movement left with Crossbones since he one-shot. And so what he's going to do here is just kind of like walk out of maximum possible range for Star-Lord to be able to walk and shoot him, factoring in Shadow Organization. So that leaves Star-Lord with no real options. And so I'm thinking my only chance of keeping this in here is Star-Lord is just going to move over onto this other point, and I just kind of need him to miraculously survive, which is pretty unlikely, but it was really the only way I was possibly seeing this working out, because there's no way I score the point from Crossbones, and I don't think Shuri may be able to move 1 person, or Spider-Man moves 1 or 2 people. So I take I believe he glider rams me, and so that softens up Star-Lord. I have 2 health left, and he's going for a Knight of the Goblin. I believe he advanced once, goes for the glider ram, then puts a Knight of the Goblin into me. I block 2, but that still means I take 2, and that dazes Star-Lord. So things are very quickly falling apart now. There's an extract laying over there, but there's not really a good way for me to go get it. He can't pick it up because Goblin can't interact with it. With the daze, with him being able to have first activation and last activation, it's going to be pretty rough for me. So all I can do here is, sure, he can't even like pushed Kingpin because he's got the Shadow Organization on right now too. So all I can really do is, yeah, I can just shuffle Shuri a little bit. And he... So I have Spider-Man. He goes ahead and has Taskmaster pick up the extract. He gets to go last with Kingpin. I can pull Kingpin, but it doesn't really put him anywhere that he can't just walk back onto that point. The plus side, Taskmaster and Goblin are both injured on their injured sides. So I'm seeing like the only thing I can really do points wise is double move Spider-Man over there to score a point. And then Kingpin moves over onto the point. So he's going to score a total of 4 and I score 2. So it ends up going 19 to 15 in the favor of Criminal Syndicate. Man, both Shadow Organization and that final MODOK sap play really spun things out of control for me. Criminal Syndicate is a very challenging team to maintain against, but great game. Hope you guys enjoyed seeing some Syndicate stuff in action, and I will have more for you next week. Later, nerds.